Before you get going, I think that some basic things you need to have happen before you dive in and start configuring anything. I highly recommend when you start to uh, decide you need to implement more advanced pieces of Kerberos in your MOS environment, SharePoint environment, etc. The very first thing you need to do is to focus on a plan for making it happen. Understand all the services that are in play, which services will talk to which services, and where that authentication and delegation is happening. Get the list of service accounts and what usernames will be associated with those. Make sure you get all of the DNS names created and make sure those are A name records. And I will show you a little piece of that in a moment. I recommend that you generate your SPNs via some type of script. For some reason, even though the humans are still typing them in, but when you do it in a script, you have it there on your screen, listed out, whether it's a batch file or a VB script or what have you, it seems to generate less typo or less accidents in that respect. Make sure you enable your user accounts for delegation at that point. Make sure you understand what delegation is required, whether it's constrained or not constrained, and figure out where your protocol transition is actually happening if needed. So let's talk a little bit about the need for A records rather than C names. This is a very crude example that hopefully you'll be able to gather some information from. In this example, I have a server that is acting as my workspace server, and the actual name of that server's NetBIOS name is web server, and the fully qualified domain name is webserver.k2.com. Now my workspace is operating under the app pool ID of k2/k2 service workspace, or WS. The website itself has a host header of workspace.k2.com, and I set two SPNs in there. One for the fully qualified domain name with the service of HTTP, and one for the NetBIOS name with the service of HTTP. Very basic. I'm sure a vast majority of you have this same type of configuration in your environment. Now, when my client says, you know what, I need to go connect to the workspace and run a report or get my task list, etc., it issues a quick query for the workspace.k2.com, and the DNS server returns the actual host name of that webserver.k2.com rather than the actual host header information that I was looking for. So at that point, the client says, that's fine. Give me the user ID that's associated with this SPN then. So it uses what that returned, being webserver.k2.com, with the HTTP. And what returns is not the SPN that you required. So that authentication path won't work because it's using the wrong ID to encrypt, decrypt those credentials.